space and challenges you to learn the processes, to become a proactive self-leader, to take personal responsibility for the success of the organization.
All right, I want to bring out one other idea with you before we open it up to the floor. And this is something that we call in the book the leadership driving range, okay, which is kind of an interesting name, the LDR, the leadership driving range. It's this idea that if you want to be a good golfer, you got to go out and practice. You don't just go and tee off. If you want to be a good tennis player, you got to go hit against the backboard or train with your coach. Yet in the workplace, we think, okay, boom, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's have a conversation with my followers, with the people that report to me right now. Let me go and do this. But it doesn't work that way if you want to be good, right?
No, it doesn't. You have to be able to practice. Do we have anyone here from human resource, in the human resource side of the business? Yeah, there we are. So there's a big chapter in the book. How do you go from human resource to becoming a human capitalist? And the human capitalist is the person who develops, supports, helps people practice. That was the idea of the leadership driving range. So if you're a leader and you're getting ready to have your year-end reviews or quarterly reviews, and you want to practice, the HR group, the human capitalist, should be able to help you in the leadership driving range. Come in and practice the way you would ask questions. Come in and practice the way you would carry on that conversation. The book will help you understand that. So it's a simple model, but it really does help you understand why practice is so important.
So I hope you take this idea to your company. All right, I can talk to Bill all the time, so I'd like to open up to you all. Do you have any questions from the floor?
Yeah, I imagine that one of the feedback you might get from people in Singapore is that their company doesn't encourage this kind of interaction to bring up tough topics. Can you talk about companies that have created a more of an open interaction environment and how that's benefited the company or organization?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. The main one of the companies that did it are organizations that have what we call human resource business partners. These are folks who are really working towards understanding how a business can be better around this. So the Procter & Gamble of the world, they are very good at getting people to connect with each other. There is an issue. Let's make no doubt about it. There is an issue of I say, you do leadership in Singapore. That's our nature. I come out of school, I need for somebody to tell me what to do. Those days are over. We need to get everybody involved. And trust me on this, if leaders don't start connecting that way, you will just move to another organization to find it, where your purpose is being understood, where your values are being supported, and where leaders are really trying to connect with you. There are companies right now who have, in Singapore-based companies, that have bought 50 and 60 of these books, given it to their entire leadership team. So I'm working with 4 or 5 companies who are starting that. It is a trend. We have to have everybody involved for us to be successful. Singapore, I've been here for 27 years. I've coached in every 3-letter stat board in Singapore. I've had the chance to work with PermSex and everybody. Here's what I know, is that Singapore plays above its weight and needs to continue to learn how to do that even better. So when we get organizations that are going to activate the third space, they're going to look for people who want to be successful, who are willing to be proactive self-leaders, Singapore's next 50 to 100 years are going to be set. So excited about the possibilities for it. Mike, it's a great question. You'll see more and more organizations leaning towards this.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions from those of you here?
Can anyone lead third space discussions? If you're lower down on the food chain, for example, can you bring the third space to your organization, or does it have to be leadership? You have to have leadership buy-in for this to take off.
It's a great question, Michelle. Actually, when you get into the book and everybody really understands what third space is, anyone has the ability to call a third space meeting. So if you're the president of an organization and somebody 3 levels below says, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm not sure that my work is valuable. I need a third space meeting. Psychologically safe, you go into the meeting and you talk about it. So anybody can call it, and anybody has a right to call a third space meeting.
Kenneth.
How do you balance this idea of your driving range, and meetings are a very important part of this connection, this alignment. So what is your take on meetings? Too many meetings can be totally counterproductive as well.
Yeah, they can. It's another great question. So often when we start the third space, we begin to get in and understand this. I have many leaders who say, gosh, Bill, this is going to take a long time. This seems to be slowing things down. But the key to all third space meetings is that you have to slow down to speed up. Once you slow down and you make sure that you've answered all the questions, now you're highly aligned. You'll see on page 159, actually, in the book, you'll see another mental model called the funnel of understanding. And the funnel is basically a process to be able to slow down at the beginning, at the top of the funnel, and squeeze everything out until we know exactly what we're doing. Then everybody is highly aligned. Everybody feels like that the work that they do is very, very valuable.
Distillation.
Distillation. That's the word we should have used. Distillation is the right way to look at that. It takes all of that data and squeezes it down into its essence. And before you leave a third space meeting, the question that each person asks, president or somebody way below says, what are you going to do when you leave this meeting? And I'm going to do this, this, and this, and we're all aligned.
Got it. Thank you.
So I love this. I love this concept of you have to slow down to speed up. And we talked earlier that if there's one tip you're going to give someone in a company to improve their career, what would it be? And it was be proactive. If there's one tip you're going to give somebody about running a meeting, what you need to do before you wrap up, right? What is it?
Thank you.
Well, you have to ask the question, where are you going? What are you going to do next? So, I know that many of you do Zoom meetings, and you go, well, I have a Zoom meeting that finishes at 10, and then I go to 11. There's another one. So the question you ask everybody at about 10:59 is you say, okay, everybody okay? Any questions? Okay, no, go. So I encourage all of you leaders, take at least 10 or 15 minutes before you end the meeting and ask this question. Tell me, what are you going to do when you leave this meeting? And then you start to create alignment. So it's important that we do it. It sounds funny, but once people start to recognize, ooh, I'm going to be asked at the end of this meeting what I'm going to do, they start listening better. They start crystallizing their thinking about how they're going to do things better and move more quickly. So that's the process.
And I gotta say, the temptation is someone leading a meeting, right? Even to do that, you're like, okay, Kenny, you're gonna do X, Y, and Z. Tina, you're gonna do X, Y, and Z, or you're gonna do this in marketing. And you tell them, and that's it. But no, you actually have to go around and each person needs to say to you, this is what I am going to do, and this is what I'm gonna do it, the deadline I'm gonna do it by.
Yeah, it's extremely important. So as leaders, you have to ask the question, what are you going to do? I'm going to plug another book here, because I buy them all the time for my coaching practice. It's called Leading with Questions. If you don't have this in your leadership library, buy it now. I don't think there's any available because I bought all 6 copies last weekend. Because I pass it out to all the senior leaders that I coach. But it is one of the best books that I've read in the last 5 or 6 years. Leading with Questions by Michael Marquette. He's the gentleman who also wrote a book called Action Learning. But if you get that and you start to learn the process of asking these open-ended questions, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Why does that benefit you? What purpose? How does that connect with our purpose? And the great thing about the third space is that anybody can ask anybody else that same question. So if I've just started within your organization, I can ask the president of the company in the third space, what's your understanding of our purpose?
if I could make a pitch now, excuse me, for our own book, something which makes it stand apart from other business books. We've created a fictional story set here in Singapore in a multinational company, but one that is essentially Singaporean. It's a company that has like a car motor import-export business. The one we focus on is its food business. And within that company, you'll see yourself. You'll see problems that your company faces or wherever you've worked. And then you'll see how those problems are tackled and how those transformations are made. And we alternate between that fictional story in Cascade Trading with the academic and intellectual arguments of the book, and then finally with a field model that says this is how you can implement it at work. And the feedback we've gotten so far about the story is, can't set it down. I mean, how often do you hear that about a business book? So that's my own pitch. Enjoy that story.
Yeah. And this gives me a real opportunity to talk about Michael for just a moment. I've been working on this book for 15 years. The idea, the concept of it, does it work, does it not work? How would you do this? For many years, I had gone to different business leaders, and I said, look, I'm going to show you the model that I've created. I want you to tear it apart. I want you to tell me why it doesn't work. And the last person I did that with was a gentleman named Joe Ranieri, an entrepreneur here in Singapore. He apologizes to the world because he's the guy who started Crocs. He said, I put the ugliest shoes in the world on people's feet. And so I showed him the model, and he said, no, you know what, Bill, this makes a lot of sense. He said, you need to write a book. And I said, Joe, look, I know I need to write a book, but you are looking at 10 of the dumbest digits on the planet. When I start typing, it comes out like I'm a second grader. It just doesn't work. I've tried voice-activated software. I've tried everything. It just didn't work for me. And Joe says, well, let me introduce you to Michael Switow. And so Michael and I started working together in
a little over 2 years ago.
A little over 2 years ago. 70 Zoom calls later, all of them recorded, then transcribed, and then edited, and then rewrote, and all of that. The outcome of all of that is this book. And I must tell you, if any of you have an idea for a book in your mind, get his card. Because he was able to take everything that I've done, from workshops to working with presidents of companies, he was able to take all of that and put it into words that I know will resonate with you. We had one of my colleagues who read the book, she sent me an email back and said, the book was riveting. I couldn't put it down. Now, for a business book to be defined as riveting, I wish that I could take complete credit for that. He took the ideas and made it riveting. So I guess we're about ready to sign. Yeah, Michael, thank you.
So that was my question. I was about to ask, are you ready to sign some books?
Yes, I'm ready to sign some books and take some questions also. So again, on behalf of Kinokuniya, thank you so much for this, for setting it all up. And just that quick reminder, please buy the book first before Michael and I sign it. Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure talking to all of you.
And before we wrap up, I'd like to thank Michelle Martin from Money FM. Round of applause, please.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, Michelle, very
Grab your
much.
books and get them signed.
And thank you very much to Kinokuniya. We're here to take photos, sign books, and any last questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Alright, so right now Kinokuniya has actually prepared a few tokens of appreciation for our speakers and for Michelle. So can we invite Mr. Kenny Chan, store consultant, to present them with the gifts. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
It's on an iPad, sorry. Yes, of course. Physical one.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Kenny.
For the gaming and all, you take a similar role to that all the... Yeah, so I work with this other author, exactly.